a day of intense fighting on the eastern front of Ukraine. You're looking at the aftermath of Ukrainian shelling in occupied Donetsk, where Russian leaders say at least 4 people were killed Tuesday. And today, just 30 miles to the west in Kurakhove, Ukrainian officials say at least 8 civilians were killed by Russian strikes. CNN's Sam Kiley is at a hospital in Kramatorsk, where wounds inflicted by modern weapons of war require innovative, life-saving techniques.
Wartime brain surgery in tandem. Wounded in battle on the same day, on the same front. 2 young men, the focus of these over-practiced neurosurgeons. Kramatorsk is often bombed. The windows, even in here, are taped to slow flying glass. The effort is intense to repair brains, to save lives, memories, loves and future dreams. They would have little idea where to start their delicate work if they didn't have use of this CT scanner. It can pinpoint damage, find what it's done, and it gives surgeons a plan of action. He says, yes, and unfortunately there is no left eye. There's a suspicion of damage to the right eye as well, but definitely no left eye.
This is the 4th patient we've seen in the space of about an hour come in for a CT scan. It's supposed to be doing 15 or 20 a day. They're actually doing 70 or 80. In short, it's wearing out.
This equipment is vital. The hospital can't afford a new one, but a used one's for sale in the west of Ukraine. Cost about $120,000. Price of losing this one, incalculable. He says he shows signs of severe cranial cerebral injury with acute subdural hematoma and severe brain contusion. He needs urgent surgery. The administrators here have raised about $60,000. They need help with the rest. This is the only CT scanner in a vast region. Critical. This machine is critical. CT is critical to provide appropriate care for patients with both head wounds and acute brain injuries.
Is it saving lives?
Definitely, absolutely, 100%.
There's been a steady flow of soldiers injured in and near Bakhmut. That is the scene of the heaviest fighting. But this is a hospital that is trying to deal really with an area, they say, about 300 square kilometers, and a lot of that is at war.
Some soldiers are relatively lucky. Duck was shooting mortars at the Russians, who shot mortars back. My commander was lucky. He sat in front of me and I sat behind him, and he was unhurt and I got hit in the leg. But yeah, we've seen wounded and dead before. If I'm sitting here, I'm lucky. Ukrainians on this eastern front call it the meat grinder. Czech was alongside Duck when they were hit.
How would you describe the battle for Bakhmut?
One world.
He says World War I, trenches, mud, blood, trenches, mud again, artillery, trench warfare. That's it, World War I and World War II, something like that. Verdun, the Somme, something like that.
Verdun, Somme.
The difference is that modern weapons are now more powerful. Modern surgery, often the only route to survival. That and old-fashioned grit.
Now, Jake, that hospital and indeed other hospitals I visited on this front line is having to heat itself using self-installed boilers, burning anything from rubbish through to coal and wood. They are short of electricity because of the Russian attacks on the electrical systems. Frequently they are hit with power cuts and have to resort to generators. Of course, they need CT scans, they need MRIs, and the wounded keep pouring in, Jake. This is a ferocious front line as both the Russians and the Ukrainians have shifted their soldiers from the southern battles up to this. Very much focused on Bakhmut at the moment, Jake.
All right, Sam Kiley in Kramatorsk, Ukraine, thank you so much. As the heavy fighting rages on, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky spent the day visiting wounded troops, presenting medals of honor, one to an American fighter who volunteered on the front lines for Ukraine. The same day, Time magazine named Zelensky and the Spirit of Ukraine as its Person of the Year. CNN's chief international correspondent Clarissa Ward has been following the evolution of Putin's brutal war since the beginning, and she joins us in studio now. Good to see you and know that you're safe.
Good to be here.
It's not always something I'm confident of. So today, Russian President Putin said the threat of nuclear war is increasing. Now, we've seen him and heard him saber-rattling before, but as the war drags on and his stockpiles of traditional weapons deplete, do you think that this threat of using a nuke becomes more real?
The threat definitely becomes more real, and the threat can't be discounted, certainly. But I think what you heard, if you listened to Putin's entire comments today, was kind of a typical example of him trying to play both sides. So he said, of course, we're not crazy. We'd never be the first to use nuclear weapons. We only have them as a deterrent. But then at the same time, he says, but the risk is definitely increasing. And by the way, ours are more modern and more sophisticated than yours are. So on the one hand, he's trying to diffuse the situation, while on the other hand, he's continuing to stoke it, because the threat of the nuclear weapons is almost more important to him than the actual use of them. He understands that that carries such a deep fear, not just with Ukrainians, but with people all around the world. And so that's a very important lever for him to have at his, beck and call. At the same time, most people are saying we don't see any indication that he actually intends or is preparing to use them.
Yeah, one of the weapons that he is using is this mercenary group called the Wagner Group. It's run by one of the oligarchs, Yevgeny Prigozhin. You and I have talked about him before. And Prigozhin this week warned the U.S. not to provoke his group by designating the Wagner Group a terrorist organization. You've covered the Wagner Group extensively for years. You were even tracked and intimidated by them, or at least they tried to intimidate you in 2019. When Prigozhin issues a warning like this one, quote, "Let sleeping dogs lie, do not wake Wagner, Americans, while it's still sleeping," how seriously should the U.S. take that, do you think?
I think the thing you have to understand about the Wagner Group is that they really rely heavily on the myth of the Wagner Group. They relish in their brutality. And now that we've seen Yevgeny Prigozhin come out of the shadows and kind of claim a much more public role and issue a lot of threats and talk about the need to carpet bomb Ukraine, I think they're playing up to that brutality even more. When we were in the Central African Republic doing that story and we were talking to U.S. officials, the sort of message we were given was, don't give these guys too much credit. They're pretty incompetent and they're not that effective. Fast forward to where we are now, I think there are still very real issues surrounding whether or not they're competent and how much of an impact they're having on the battlefield in Ukraine. But they certainly are a significant force, and what makes them dangerous and difficult to contend with is that they don't answer to anyone officially. There is no accountability for a group like Wagner, and as we have seen in some of these horrific execution videos, they are willing to stoop to acts of great brutality to achieve their objectives.
Yeah, it doesn't take any great strategic mind to rape kids or whatever their latest crimes are. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.